you fish freaks. Welcome to episode number 95 of the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast, your ultimate source for all things kayak fishing. And this episode proudly sponsored by Kayak Bass Fishing, where KBF state challenges let anglers compete anytime, anywhere. These online catch photo release tournaments run at the state, the regional, and national level. So no matter where you live, there is a challenge for you. So head over to kayakbassfishing.com, click compete, learn more, get set up. Seth, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing in the standings this month in KBF?
I literally skipped over that on purpose because I'm getting my
every
butt kicked.
week.
I'm getting my butt kicked.
We need the update. What's your bag right now?
I didn't even look, to be honest with you, because I know that I was behind last week and I haven't caught a fish bigger than my smallest. So I got some work to do. Give me some time. Give me some time. I'm excited about another tournament coming up. Since I'm losing this one, I'm going to focus my time and attention on another one. 2 months from now, we get the Kayak Adventure Series. And so this is going to be the one in Springfield, Ohio, June 18th through the 14th of that entire week. However, the tournaments are June 13th to the 14th.
Those are fun.
So I am teaming up with Fishing with Gramps. We're going to do this bad boy. And if you haven't checked it out yet, head over to kayakadventureseries.com. Click on the Springfield if you want to fish against me and Gramps. And there's like a million different ways to win, right? You can, like the big bass, you get a century belt if you catch over 100 inches. You get there's things that you get if you pick up the most trash. There's things you can do like this, a micro bag.
Dark Horse Tackle award winner.
Angler who jumps the most places from day 1 to day 2 is Dark Horse Tackle. Top lady angler from Women's Fishing Federation. So it's like a 1,000,001 ways to win. I look forward. This will be my first. Have you done one before?
Yeah, I've done one. We won the team one here in Florida. Blake Abbey and I, we got first place. So you had Blake Abbey on your podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I wasn't here. That's why I don't remember that.
You weren't here. Yeah. We got first place in the team and I got third overall. So it was cool. It was a lot of fun, man. The team aspect is really cool. Yeah.
I'm excited about that. So bringing the heat, head over there, and you can actually fish the individual and the team at the same time. And that's how you won. Yeah, that's how you guys did your thing. So looking forward to that one. But tonight, folks, I have a couple years ago, I went fishing with a buddy of mine in Indiana, and he put me on to Nikko. And then I saw him at the Columbus Expo, and it's this lure right here, and we're going to get into it. The Zaza Leech from Nikko Baits is just a stupid smallmouth slayer. So we're going to get into this company. I'm going to bring Scott and Jeff out of the green room and welcome to the show. Scott, welcome. Jeff, welcome.
Hey guys.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love the company. I love your lures. They straight out catch fish. I primarily have used them for smallmouth, but I am sure they do the business on the largemouth as well. But to get us kicked off, just to let us get to know you guys a little bit better. First, I'm going to ask you guys the question. The question is, I want to hear about the origin story of Nikko Baits. In the midst of that, share a little bit about what you do, Scott. Share a little bit about what you do, Jeff, so we understand who we're listening to.
Well, first me. So I'm in charge of all of Nikko in North America. I have a very unusual and special, deep relationship with Nikko. So I lived in Japan for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So I was at a trade show unrelated to fishing, and I finished up early, and there was one of those big convention centers, and they had another trade show next door, and I was able to get in free. It was a nanotechnology show, and I thought, well, I was kind of curious what they do with nanotechnology, so I went over there, and Nikko had a booth in there. And amongst all of this medical...
Nanotech?
Yeah, so at the time... Nikko was incorporating a very unique nanotechnology that made these baits biodegradable.
Okay.
And we've since gone away from that formula for a couple of reasons. One, there's a lot of shocking stuff that goes on in the U.S. that makes biodegradable plastics essentially illegal.
And we're just not going to skip over that, by the way. We're going to circle back to that one. Yeah.
And
illegal bait making. Yeah, we'll circle back. Got that, Seth?
Yeah, so I met him in 2010, and I was starting to help Nikko go international at the time. They had just released their first baits in 2011,
Okay.
and I was helping them try to get contacts around the world. And during the spring, it was March 11th, 2011. People might remember the second largest earthquake ever recorded, and the giant tsunami and the Fukushima radiation nuclear power plant blowing up. Well, I was in all that.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of changed perspective. So I thought I'd come back to the States and try to get Nikko going here. And so I kind of handle everything for them, from everything in North America to some of their technical stuff to bait design and just about anything that he's doing. So
Yeah.
I'm part of decisions that don't even include the U.S.
Oh, nice. So you've been working with Nikko for quite a bit of time now.
Right. Yeah. It was a very, very slow start because I was not from the fishing industry from a career point of view. I fished all my life, but it was quite a transition to go from the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 world to trying to get a brand going in the fishing industry. And be honest, it's far more difficult than working in corporate. I can tell you that. So I struggled for a very long time before we finally could get everybody aligned in what we wanted to do and get the Helgermite, because that's what's got us going. And so that's kind of what I do and where we came from.
I got like 7 questions I want to follow up, but I got Jeff over here. Jeff, I know we met. We were talking right before the show started. And I was like, wait a second. I know this guy. 2 years ago, I was at the Columbus Fishing Expo. I was like, hey, you throw this mic on and tell me all about Nikko Baits? And he did. And so if you think he looks familiar, it might be because you watched him in one of my videos. But Jeff, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh, well, again, I'm Jeff. I handle all of Nikko's social media posts, and I'm actually over their pro team. In a nutshell, I started out, just being a big lover and supporter of Nikko. Credits to that was John Dalton. He's the one that kind of got me started going on the Helgermite. And that's been almost 6-7 years now. And then when I moved from pro team up the ladder, so to speak, a little bit, I've been doing that. It was 3 years this month was the official month that I started 3 years doing what I'm doing now.
All right.
So I fully believe in supporting something 100% if I'm loving it. And that's pretty much how I came to sitting here right here today. So
heck yeah. Well, we love John Dalton. We love the creek crawler here as well.
Yeah.
You guys are highly connected, or he's highly connected with you, one of those ways. But Scott,
yes,
I got to head back to some of your story there.
I got a lot
struggle breaking the U.S. market, but you said the Helgermite is what did it, and I'm always very interested in the industry of fishing, right? The kind of behind the scenes, what actually takes place, all the stuff that not a lot of people talk about, and it doesn't have to be salacious. I'm just curious about the business of the business, right? And so, if you could touch a little bit there, and then you did make it a note to talk about some when it comes to making biodegradable. You used to, you don't do it anymore. Those who do it still in the U.S., there's some ethical lines being crossed, you say?
Well, no, I don't know about that. I can't speak for
you
other
said
people.
Illegal.
A truly biodegradable plastic is I didn't say completely illegal. It's essentially banned. And they put a lot of legal mechanisms in place that if you claim to have biodegradable plastics, you better show it. And it's almost impossible to show it. And if you don't show it, you have a lot of potential liability.
So you got to be able to, if you're going to say it's bio, you got to prove it, right? And it takes a real long time.
It's the technical barriers to establishing a biodegradable plastic in the U.S. are essentially insurmountable.
Unpack it some more for us. I'm actually curious about this because I actually see it in some other lures. I have some lures hanging on my wall. Biodegradable.
Well, they may be biodegradable, but a biodegradable plastic. So to call a plastic biodegradable is very very stringent. So when I first started working with Nikko, I did a bunch of research, and there were actually several companies out there claiming their plastics were biodegradable. And at the time, that was perfectly fine because the plastics did degrade to some degree.
Okay.
So I remember I did a bunch of analysis and like did all the consulting stuff. You plotted everything, and like if you were I should mention, but there's a big giant company that their baits used to be made out of PVA plastic and I think PVA, and PVA will break down. It just takes special conditions to do it. But even that company is a Wall Street investment bank owned giant, powerful company. Even they were small. They were small fish in the world of plastics, in the world of corporate, the real world. And they couldn't claim their plastics were biodegradable anymore like they used to, say, maybe 10 years ago. So what happens is I when I went to seek certification for Nikko's plastic to be biodegradable, it was right around that time there was a lot of rule changes. A very, very, think world's largest, think very, very powerful, the most powerful people you can think of in the plastics petroleum industry.
Okay. Tracking.
I don't know who, but I was able to talk to some of their technical guys or their technical consultants. And let me back up. Right around that time, there were some rule changes, and the rule changes required that your plastic has to biodegrade 90% in 90 days.
Oh.
At the time, Nikko was biodegrading about 60 to 65% in 900 days. So when you run these tests, you put them in a high decay environment, and usually your control is a little bit of cellulose, and cellulose is more or less wood, right? So under the current standards, even wood is not biodegradable in the United States under these standards. And the reason for that is because I said, think very, very extremely powerful Wall Street type companies. In the offshore oil industry, they generate, I don't know how exactly, I'm not that familiar with it, but I've been told by some insiders that the offshore oil industry generates a lot of microplastics that get washed off the rigs into the environment and float around in the oceans. And there was an effort to get their plastics declared biodegradable, but they couldn't pass any of the standards. They were not biodegradable. And those companies basically consider the plastic their domain, and they considered that biodegradable plastic will be their domain in the future. So what they did was, in the U.S., we don't always live in a perfect democracy, right? So a lot of rules got changed. So the standards, so the ANSI and ASTM standards were changed so that, like I said, even now, even wood is not biodegradable under those standards. So it became impossible. So it was a block to prevent all the other companies who didn't have billions of dollars in revenue to force them to stop work on the biodegradable plastic. So that even very powerful companies in the fishing industry who used to have some biodegradable plastic, even they no longer claim it. So that blocked it. And what they did to enforce it is they created around the same time, a bunch of what they call greenwashing laws. So if you claim to be biodegradable, or so what percentage post-consumer waste, or whatever that you claim that's environmentally friendly, there's a series of laws in place, both federal and especially state level, where you can have some serious liability if you claim to have an environmentally friendly product and label it as such, and if you can't back it up. And now in biodegradable plastics, it's impossible to back it up.
Huh.
And so that was one reason why we decided to move away from that formula. Customers were, to be honest, in the fishing industry, people buy cheap knockoffs. They don't stick with the originals, and they wouldn't pay for environmentally friendly products. And so we were struggling to get started, and the biodegradable was, it wasn't helping us get started. But we still claim that we're very environmentally friendly because our plastic it's a food and medical grade plastic. There's no toxins whatsoever. You can eat it. You can smoke it. It won't cause any harm to anything at any time. It does actually degrade. There are actually microbes that will eat the particular plastic that Nikko has. It's also broken down by UV. So if you lose it out on the ocean, it's floating. The UV breaks it down. The microbes start breaking it down. Plus, we call it swallow safe. So it doesn't swell. It doesn't harden. So if a turtle or a fish or a bird ingests it, they can easily disgorge it. The fish is not going to have restricted movement because something swollen and stiff is in its body. They can pass it or disgorge it. Or if they can't, it remains soft and flexible within their belly and does not cause them any harm at all. So we still have probably the most, Nikko actually has the most technically advanced, high quality, most environmentally friendly, high performance plastic in fishing.
Okay.
We just don't call it biodegradable because we can't make it degrade 90% in 90 days.
So what does Nikko mean, and why was it chosen as the brand name?
Well, Nikko the company itself is probably about maybe 60 years old, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's funny, when I talked to one of the founders, we said that it means daily happiness. So the ni means day, and the ko is one of those Chinese characters for happiness. So daily happiness. So the kind of the philosophy of the company is, you have to bring something of value to people. You have to make people happy to survive in the world. And, you have to provide a product or a service that people want, and you got to make them happy. And that became the name of the company.
Now, it's based in Japan, correct?
That's right. Based in Japan.
So how does that influence like lure design or fishing philosophy?
Well, that kind of depends on the people you got.
Yeah.
So one of the original guys who created, their first, well, probably over half of the baits that we have still was created by an amazing guy. And he's the one who brought this whole lure business into to Nikko. He was kind of working by himself a little bit, and he was kind of struggling. And he and Nikko got together and they talked about it, and they loved fishing, so we did the fishing, and that effort started in 2000. They worked on this plastic and the baits for 10 years before they released the bait.
Oh wow, that's a long R&D.
Yeah, and but this older fellow, he's since passed away during COVID or shortly after COVID, and so I've taken over most of the bait design since then, and so the bait design has been done by me for freshwater here in the States. We now have another person in Japan who's working on some saltwater designs, and so we'll actually have we have an interesting bait coming. Maybe I don't think it'll be the fall. I think it'll be the spring. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting crossover potentially. It's a totally new
drop it right here.
It'll blow your mind.
Oh, come on, you guys got to give me the juice.
So we'll see. I mean, we haven't put it in the water yet, so we still got some work to do, but there is another person with the company now that does.
They're not giving up, Seth. They're not giving up.
They'll be doing the more saltwater stuff.
No, I don't think anything.
I got to watch it.
What makes your plastics, so high performance? You said you can eat them. Obviously, you can eat them. You can smoke them. So
you can smoke them. Yeah,
that differentiates you guys from everyone else. But what makes your plastics, more high performance and better than the other No leaders in the industry.
Well, Nikko's is an elastomer type of plastic.
Okay.
You can have the variety of plastics that you can make, an elastomer. You can make regular PVC baits like elastomer if there's a way to do it. But elastomer baits are very, very tricky and finicky. It's a world of trade. For the most part, it's a world of trade-offs. Every time you want a certain property, every time you gain a property that you want, you'll tend to lose something else.
Gotcha.
And it's very, very tricky and difficult to get a sweet spot. And, as time goes on, more and more companies are getting better and better at it. But Nikko was by far the best. If you think of Japan, think of the quality, the innovation, and the dedication to being perfect. That's the plastic that Nikko has. It's really unrivaled. And I've looked at plastics, elastomer plastics all over from just about everything that's out there. And I can tell you that Nikko, even 15 years into this, is still by far the most advanced, high quality, high performance plastic out there.
What's the I'm curious, what goes into designing a new bait, right? I've always found this fascinating. I had actually, I think it was on Fishing with Grant's podcast, and he had a guest on from Strike King, and I asked him what their R&D was. He's like, it's like 1 to 2 years. I'm like, dang, that's a long research development from ideation to lure in hand or mass production. But that's what it takes. That's what it takes. So I'm curious for Nikko, what goes in to designing a new bait, and how long is that R&D process?
Well, it's way too long.
Jeff's like, yep, I agree. I've been wanting this.
Yeah. What you said is sometimes pretty much spot on.
1 to 2.
Yeah.
How many do you have in the process right now?
What's that?
How many do you have in the flow at the moment?
We have right now, as far as like different profiles, we've got 1 freshwater, 1 saltwater in the supply, in the development chain right now. So yeah, it's anyway, yeah, it takes a lot, as far as ideation goes. Well, I mean, at the extreme level, there's an unlimited number of ideas, right? You can
dime a dozen,
whatever you come up with. The problem with new baits and being innovative is that, generally speaking, customers are for the market are generally reluctant to try something that's too new, too different.
Yeah.
And that's what really surprised me. And that's what I struggled with in the early days, because when I grew up, I would fish anything and everything, and I'd experiment all different kinds of ways. And I experimented with things as a kid that didn't even come onto the scene until like 20 years, 30 years later. And I had no idea. Well, I was just playing around, and I'd see something new, and it would be kind of a trend. And it's like, oh my gosh, I remember as a kid, I played around with that. And so, so like, for example, when I first started, we didn't have the Helgermite. The Helgermite's what put us on the scene, so to speak.
Okay.
I had shrimp, tadpoles, and octopus. And I was fishing for smallmouth with shrimp, octopus, and tadpoles. And I grew up fishing smallmouth, and I would catch more smallmouth than I ever did on shrimp, octopus, and tadpoles. But you know what? I couldn't get anybody to buy them. And people would say, well, tadpoles aren't a smallmouth bait, or why would they eat shrimp? Or there's no octopus in rivers. And so it was very, very difficult to get that. And so when you come up with new baits, catching fish is only part of it. That's kind of the first part, but it has to be something that is close enough to something in the market that customers can relate to. Not so close that it's just a copy of something else,
right?
Because then why even do it? And not so different that customers are afraid to use it and say, well, I've been really surprised at this. Not now. I'm not surprised now, but when I first started, I was surprised at all the questions on rigging that I would get, and I'm like, it's just a piece of plastic. Just put a. How do you hook plastic? You hook plastic probably the same way 90% of the time.
Uh-huh.
And you just put a hook in it. that was originally. Of course, now it's different, but that inhibited the sales of baits that are very effective and fun to fish, just because a lot of people are unfamiliar with them.
Do you still get those type of questions, Nay? But now with YouTube and all that stuff, people just kind of figure it out on their own. Jeff, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, we still get it repeatedly, and that's another part. You see rigging posts, or even at the shows when we had we're going to different shows. I mean, you saw it firsthand. I literally brought a little tackle box of my own lures that I throw on a regular basis, and the multiple ways that I do it, and that's the best way that we can kind of help people, educate people.
Yeah.
On how to rig our baits and different aspects and stuff that way.
And so you like the leech, for example. When I designed the leech, because of that experience I had and that struggle I had in the early days, I designed that leech to be rigged many different ways to make it as flexible as we could, so that it would cover as much territory as we could.
Right.
Can you imagine a fish grabbing the hold of that and then accidentally letting go?
You just smack it in the face. I'm telling you what, I have a buddy who fishes this, and he's like, he's like, on one. You're not going to believe this, Darren, but I've caught 100 smallmouth on one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you see me stretch it. I know that he's listening in right now. You can't see it, but I'm literally going.
That's like 3 feet.
I'm going 3 feet on a bait that's 3.5 inches or so long. And so, and the crazy thing is, look at the tadpole. Look how tiny the tail is. You can do the same thing on those things.
Yeah. So
I know. You've never fished Nikko before, Seth?
No.
Never. Have you even heard of the company before I had him on the show?
Maybe.
Okay.
No, this is new to me. So this is one of those nights where I'm like not even a part of the conversation. I'm like trying to apply, like where can I use these baits in my repertoire and these events?
Well, that tadpole tail is so strong that I actually put the hook through the tail.
Yep.
And
really?
You'll still get, even with the hook going through the shaft of that tail, you will still get probably 30, 40 fish before you lose that tail.
That is so wild.
Jeez Louise.
All right, let's go tactical. We're going to jump into baits here. So
right.
We're going to do a choose your own adventure. Let me share my screen.
Choose your own adventure.
I know, this is good times. All right, let's head over to Bo.
So the last tackle folks we had on here, I bought their stuff and then won a tournament with it. So I expect the same
results.
Same results from your bait.
Oh, that's right. Wait, real quick before we hop into this section, Seth, tell us about your big win this past weekend. My bad, bro. Yeah. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I was
homie wins tournaments like he has it in his family budget, right? It's like you've been doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it is. I'm like, if I don't go win this, I don't know how we're going to pay the bills this weekend. So I think that's why I pull it out, because I'm taking it serious. But yeah, I won one down here, Florida Kayak Bass Trail, which is the largest trail in the state of Florida. I was on Lake Garcia, which is a relatively shallow lake. It's my back-to-back wins now, which is nice. I won the last one. The one before that, I got second, so I almost had 3 straight. But yeah, it was kind of a perspective mode in a deep canal. There was a lot of wind that day, and there's just big fish that were kind of roaming the banks of the canal. So I could see them, roaming. I would pitch at them with a different bait that we talked about the previous time.
Yeah.
Pitched in there, and I would catch them. And then once the length started creeping up there, I was winning the entire day. But once people started catching up towards me a little bit, I started searching for some bigger fish, and there was some big fish, just singles, just running right down the middle of the canal in like 15 feet of water. So I threw the old stunna jerk bait. You probably know a little bit about that.
You and your stunna. My goodness.
And knocked a couple bigs out there. But yeah, man, it was a good W. I was in the lead pretty much all day, and then people started tightening it up there towards the end, and I won by an inch and a half. I had 95.5 inches.
Nice.
Yeah, it was on a
Yeah,
lake
right.
I only ever been to for about 2 hours. So it was I needed to catch one fish to win the state championship, or I'm sorry, catch one fish to qualify for the state championship.
Okay.
I ended up winning that event when I only needed one fish. So yeah, it worked out well, man.
Bro, I'm proud of you. You've been killing it this
thanks,
season.
bro.
I mean, killing it.
Appreciate
And we're homie's just getting started. All right, back to the show. Scott, Jeff,
Yes.
I have choose your own adventure. Which bait are you like, hey, the most proud of? Now you talked about the Helgermite. We can get into that if you want. But is there anything in here you're like, hey, I'm just dying to talk about this particular?
Well, I could go on forever about all of them, but the Helgermite's what got us started, and that's the one that is still the standard setter.
All right.
So for the Helgermites, we have a 3-inch and a 4 1/4.
Okay.
And so the history of that is I was struggling in the early days and trying to get people to buy tadpoles, shrimp, and octopus, right? And they weren't doing it. So
no one buy this octopus.
There's no octopus swimming around there.
Yeah. The other thing I didn't mention is in the very early days. So Nikko does a lot of private label manufacturing, and so I did approach a lot of the big guys to do some private label because Nikko has technology that nobody else had, and I got kind of abused pretty badly. So they, that was I wasn't treated very well. So I just kind of sitting there saying, what in the world do I do? This is a task that's it was quite challenging. So I actually decided, you know what, I'm just going to go to a local Trout Unlimited show for $30. I'm going to have a table and just show some stuff and talk to people. And the trout guys were super nice. And one of them said, why don't you do a Helgermite? And so I looked into it, and I said, you know what, I actually fished plastic Helgermites when I was a kid. So they've existed for like 40 years.
Okay.
But they were never very good. And I looked at them and I said, I can do better. I can make a good Helgermite. And there were only about 3 or 4 companies making Helgermites at the time. So this Helgermite took 2 years of development. Went through a couple of iterations. And the one that we have now, I remember one day I was fishing the Shenandoah River in Virginia, and it was like April, I think it was April 7th. I think I remember the day. On one Helgermite, I caught over 100 pounds of smallmouth.
Jeez.
And it was a day like nothing else. And I remember just like, as soon as I got back home, I got on the computer and I said, we're good to go. This is the final version. So, and that's what it is. And the Helgermite has been really, truly a magical bait. I can't tell you how many stories I have about people that got back into fishing because they were addicted to drugs and that this saved them. I had people invite me to their weddings because they were brought together dating with the Nikko Helgermite and had so much fun.
No.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, really.
I
didn't go, but I sent them.
There's going to be a generation of children, a family tree because of this bait. Was what you're telling me right now.
I'm serious. It's an incredible reward if over the years of the things that people have told me that what the Helgermite meant to them and how I've had cancer patients talk about it and how it enabled them to enjoy what time they had left, and that they thought they had given up on everything, but they fished the Helgermite. It just brought them so much joy.
Nikko,
and it's just an amazing story. And so we grew, and our big break started with Indiac Angler, Matt Nelson. He did a video on them, and that kind of got us going. And then John Dalton picked them up, and we just kept growing from there. And now there's over 40 Helgermite companies, whereas for decades and decades it was 3 or 4. Now There's 40. A lot of them, if you pay attention, because I look at design, almost all of them have copied, and a lot of times they don't know what they're copying, but they'll copy or integrate parts of our design into theirs, just change it around a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, in the industry, it's a small industry. I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, I visited such and such a company, and in their R&D room, they had all Nikko stuff."
They're just
yeah,
copies.
and so I mean, I'm small, you know, so I'm kind of like the nail that stuck up a little bit. So you know, I'm getting hammered pretty hard right now, but it's kind of frustrating. A lot of people don't know the backstory, and you know, and they don't understand that, you know, when you buy copies, it's different. You know, it does have an impact on the world, and yeah. So, but anyway, the Helgermite is also, you know, at the time. I was new to this industry. I couldn't get into stores. You know, I talked to stores and they said, well, customers aren't asking you for them. And so I had to go to the internet, right? So I, you know, trying to sell on the internet. So I started with Amazon. The Helgermites got so popular that organized crime was hijacking my shipments of Helgermites.
What?
Yes. So
moving so much product. You're
well,
bringing people together in marriage, and
well,
the mob is coming after you.
Yeah, maybe this is one of those things where we go off on these other areas, but
yeah, we're going down this rabbit hole, no doubt.
Well, historically, the mafia would, they would always be present at choke points and bottlenecks in logistics and society.
Shipments
right?
come in, yeah.
Yeah, so it was very common for them to be at the ports and the wharves, and you know, or like trash disposal, because you know that's only got one route, right? It's one destination. It's a choke point. So modern day bottlenecks are Amazon warehouses, and so Amazon sells all the data. So you can buy it, you can get access. But anyway, Amazon was insisting. They kept forcing me to ship all my Helgermites to New Jersey, and they would be delivered, but they would disappear they'd be dropped off on the dock. And they would disappear before they were scanned into inventory. And probably about $15,000 worth of Helgermites disappeared. And so I tried everything, and you know, they didn't care. I was trying to contact legal department, you know, their lawyers and vice president. They just don't mind. Doesn't matter.
Meanwhile, the mob is slaying smallmouth.
So shortly, you know, this went on for a while. They paid me for a little bit because I could document that it was dropped off.
Right.
But then they stopped paying me. And we tried all kinds of things, and they kept stealing it. And they just kept stealing everything. If I shipped one pack, they'd steal it. It was on, like, once you're on the list, you're on the list. And they have, you know, certain people have connections to certain warehouses, and you know, if it's on the list, it gets taken. And so I quit doing that. But during the process, I remember one day, I was checking, where are my Helgermites going? I mean, like over $10,000 of Helgermites are disappearing into the United States. And I'm the only guy in the world doing this. And if there's a Helgermite shows up in the US, I know where it came from.
Right.
And so I would check, and I would periodically check eBay. And I remember this very, very clearly. I checked on a Wednesday evening and nothing. And then I was on a Friday evening, a friend brought some pizza over. We were talking. I said, let's check. And I checked eBay. There were 20 listings of my stolen Helgermites from vendors all across the country. They were already distributed all across the country.
Wow.
And
I don't call it organized crime for nothing.
And from that, I was able to look at their product offerings, cross-reference it with Amazon, and it was all stolen product. But corporate America doesn't care. They just don't care, you know. And I'd say, hey, I go to eBay, hey, this is stolen product, and they go, you got a police report?
Yeah.
You know, so I battled them. Ultimately I had to take down, I think it was 99 listings on eBay before everybody gave up. And you know, and they were
on a mission.
From stores. So it was kind of like a black market in Helgermites, and you know, that kind
the
of
wildest story I've ever heard.
That sort of inspired other people, because people, you know, it's fishing's a small world. People hear, and and people are, hey, these hellgrammites are really awesome. And the hellgrammite is really, really a magical bait. The effectiveness is really, truly at a level that's different than its imitators and other baits in that category.
Yeah.
I wish I could, we really caught, what do you call it? It's like I caught magic in a bottle or something like that. I forget. But that's the hellgrammite. And, I wish I could do it every time, but that's not life,
Yeah. No, I hear you. This is the hook I hooked the hellgrammite up on. A little weighted. Did you say this looks like Z-Man? Is that correct? Is that what this is, Jeff? Do you know?
Yep.
Yeah. It looks like it.
What hook would you recommend for the Helgies if you guys had to?
Helgies, I usually do. A staple item is readily available. I've used the Z-Man Ned bullet or net, regular net for the longest. But now my go-to is it's a tungsten EWG by Max Baits. They've got it from 15th ounce or 16th ounce all the way up to 7th ounce right now.
Are you talking that?
Yep.
There it is. A net EWG.
If I
don't see those too often.
I'm heading. Don't give me any information on Dale Hollow, by the way. Do not say anything about Dale Hollow on this.
You from Dale Hollow?
Bassmaster is listening, but I got a smallmouth event coming up here soon, so I might have to hop in here and get me a little
smallmouth action.
Might not be full smallmouth, maybe half and half. But
you got to get the Zaza leech then. It's my favorite for. I know the hellgrammite it slays, but this leech, what color is this? This particular
that's
color?
Called Eclipse.
Eclipse? Yeah,
that's called Eclipse. In the hellgrammite we call it natural, and then on that one we call it Eclipse.
Okay.
That was juicy.
There's a little bit of magic in that bait too that we don't usually talk about too much.
Well, let's talk about it.
Well, it's the magic. Today's the day.
Well, it's a great drop shot bait along with the hellgrammite.
Because it floats, right? So it's gonna be perfect.
But without confirming or putting it all out there, I mean, if you've got a certain light, you can check it out that way. And I'll leave it at that.
Ultraviolet.
Well, not necessarily. It's something quite unusual.
You guys gonna make me do the research, or you just gonna tell me now? I'll go do the research. I'll find out.
Well,
other short on it.
Well, the thing is, we've had that for about 10 years, and no one's figured it out yet. So,
challenge accepted.
We'd probably not like to just tell everybody.
All right.
Let's just say that's our number one selling color, and it's the number one catcher of fish that we have. And
so whatever
number one catcher of fish,
or is that color for us?
It's the Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for us.
And there's something magical about it, but you're gonna make me work for it. I respect that.
You can go do a drop Ned, put your hellgrammite down on the bottom or tadpole on the bottom, and then you can switch it up on your drop shot, put that leech or even put a tadpole too, and it's crazy.
Yeah. So
it's absolutely crazy.
If you're talking about rigging, when I designed the leech and I did the hellgrammite, and so one of the things was in the early days, like I mentioned before, I struggled with people asking me about rigging, and I always thought just it's easy, right? But it's not. It's not as easy as I thought it was. So I was had some misperceptions there, but I designed them that you can put them on Ned rigs, you can, Texas rig them, you can do just about anything with them. I made them very super easy to use. For me personally, when I was fishing the baits, I wanted baits that anybody could fish. I didn't want to force people to go buy expensive exotic things just to fish my baits. I wanted them to be accessible to everybody and yet still be very effective and catch fish. So with that mindset, I ended up over time drifting towards basically, for the most part, just two primary ways. One of them was just a simple, ordinary, just a ball jig head, just something just simple like that,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I really like this with the tadpoles, for example. And the next thing I was doing offset, just a regular offset hook. And I didn't like, to be honest, I didn't like the Ned heads that were on the market because they were expensive. They were the quality and the price were just never matched up, and I'd lose them long before I'd wear out a bait. The hooks I thought were of substandard quality. So I drifted towards an alternative to it, and that would be, I was just Texas rigging them with a Gamakatsu G-Lock hook, a 1/0. And that is a great, fantastic, harmonious fit with the Nikko Hellgrammite and Leech and some other Nikko baits. And so then I became kind of lazy because I could use one hook and I didn't have to retie it all. I could just switch out baits pretty easy.
Yeah.
And that worked out pretty well. And so that's still probably my go-to probably for now. Now I'm also starting to use, now that I have, you have more access to higher quality products now. So, now I'm going to be using stuff like this a little bit more,
Is that your tungsten EWG?
Yeah. That's I'll be using things like that.
Is that Max 4? Is that a Max 4?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, we'll talk about, I'll give you some time to talk about that a little bit later.
So, yeah. So anyway, so I just try to get the baits to be easy to use. I don't want to complicate it with people. And if you want to complicate it, that's fine. It's fun. That's some of the part of the fun part of fishing is playing around and experimenting and, making things work. But yeah.
Now, we talked about the creek crawler earlier in the show, and he is in the comment section right now. He said, if we had a 5-inch leech, it would be unreal. I'm sure he's already been chirping in your ear. So here it is again.
Yeah.
Right. In front of everybody, Scott.
Well, we talked about the process. It's a long process. And, molds are not cheap anymore. After COVID, everything's gone up, and molds are probably, I don't know, probably 3 times the price they used to be all around the world.
What's that? What's a mold cost nowadays?
Depends.
A lot.
What does one cost for a 5-inch leech?
There's so many. It could easily be in the tens of thousands of dollars if you mess around with it wrongly in the wrong way.
All right.
Well, I got a question, Darren.
Yeah.
Can you pull up their website real quick?
Boom.
Okay, go to the bait section you were in previously.
Yeah.
All right. Where were you at? Was it here? Oh, yeah. This is where it was. So I see 2 that immediately caught my eye.
Okay.
Is I can't pronounce it, but it might be called
Ikanago
minnow. Yeah, that minnow, and then the bass worms. Could you talk about, you don't have to go too deep, but what makes those special compared to, other things?
Well,
you only got one color.
Only got one color,
folks. One.
Yeah, that's a
Hope
sad,
you like it.
That's a sad story.
Yep.
So,
is it a mob story?
It's a sad story. So this bait is it's a really nice bait. We struggled to maintain the sales volumes on it. And so we decided to retire it. But before we retired it, people started winning tournaments with them and bought us out of everything we had. And it's a really nice bait. It's a 4.7 I think it's 4.6 or 4.7.
4.6, yeah.
Yeah, and it's based off of a sand eel. And in the very original versions, they were actually scented with sand eels. And we had, I think, 6 colors. And it was a bait that a lot of us loved, and people who fished them loved them, but we just couldn't get enough people to try them, like enough new customers. And there's been a bunch of tournaments won on those. And so we're going to give it a break. So we had
these are gone after these are sold out. Is what you're telling me?
Yeah, after the green pumpkin's gone. Yeah, they're gone. And now,
how many you got in here?
Oh, I don't know.
But to find out by
what's listed on the website is not necessarily what we have.
Okay.
So I've got enough for a while. So those are really nice. They work great on a lot of people. Well, a lot of people like to drop shot them, but I know a lot of people really like them on chatterbaits because chatterbaits are really loud and noisy. And there's you'll see people saying this is the loudest chatterbait out there, or this is the loudest, but those sounds are not natural. And bass are predators, and when you get into bait designs and what works, what doesn't, you'll start to realize that bass sort of key in on certain things and not others, and they learn. They're predators. They always have to learn. And so when you run the chatterbaits through there, they're noisy. Some bass in highly pressured areas will recognize that as unnatural. And but if you put a Ikenago minnow as a trailer on them, it moderates, softens the vibrations, and provides a different profile to it. And a lot of customers gave me feedback saying that they felt that really increased the performance of the chatterbait.
Yeah. We have some people in the comment section. Creek Crawler says FFS would impact the sales for sure. Now that FFS is the deal, minnow can shine.
I fish that bait a lot. To be honest, I fish it a lot top water. It doesn't make a big splash, but you don't need to. So when you have an area pond with algae and stuff on top of it, you can drag it around without picking up a bunch of algae. The fish know it's there. You don't have to make a big noise. They know it's there. And then the other thing I would do is the mouth there's a hollow section in the mouth of the bait. Okay. You can't see it in the photo, but I would shove a nail weight in there and Nikko rig them. And they look like a minnow feeding on the bottom.
Juicy.
And so when I was fishing I'm in Virginia, so when I'm fishing for smallmouth, there's a period, I think it's like late summer, early fall. There's kind of a transition between summer fishing and fall fishing. And there's that little brief period, like a couple of weeks, where the fish just absolutely love this bait, Nikko rigged. The water's usually pretty clear, so I just throw it down in the hole and just let it sit there. There's enough current, wiggling the tail. The bait's just sitting there wiggling all by itself. And the fish just come and grab it, and they just love it.
I said to myself, Scott, Seth, Jeff, before the show, I was like, I already got enough Nikko baits. I don't need to buy any more. And then you go ahead and tell me all about Nikko rigging this.
You can't get this one. I would, if I get this one and start doing well, and then they no longer exist, I would be like, oh man.
Well,
you gotta stock up.
Where do I go from here?
So let me tell you. So I mean, if we're a small company, right? So we can't just so there's time periods where we bring baits out of retirement because for whatever reason we have a hole in our development pipeline, or maybe we just look at things and say we're going to hold off on the brand new baits this year. But if we don't do anything, we're just going to sit there stagnate. So let's bring back, let's renew or bring back an old bait with something with a new. Maybe we change the formula, change the scents, change the colors, bring it back. So there's always a possibility of it coming back.
That makes sense. Darren, we had the bass worms too. If you want to click that one real quick.
You mean this bad boy right here? Dude, I can stretch this thing like upstairs. I'm at 4 feet right now.
It's long.
Yeah.
You mentioned scents as well. Is there something proprietary you have in there, or what do we?
Well, no. I mean, the only thing that we proprietary is kind of more or less the blend. I mean, basically, probably a lot of manufacturers won't tell you. So most of the scents are very similar that people use. Right. It's, it's going to be shrimp, squid, fish oil, maybe some crayfish. Depends on where you are in the world. Crayfish. Certain scents don't work well, like earthworm. You can't use earthworm because it's so unstable that it'll start decaying before you even finish getting your plastic done. So there's a variety of scents, and you'll see some people talk about special amino acid formulas, because scents are basically amino acids, and you'll see some people talk about it. But if you actually do, from my research, this is like years ago, so maybe I might not be entirely correct, but when I was doing research on it, what I realized was that the scent profiles of saltwater and freshwater is almost the same.
Okay.
And so you can use a shrimp or a squid in fresh water, and the fish recognize it as being legitimate bait to eat. And that helps trigger them. So that's not important. at some level, it's not as important as people think, but at another level, it's also nice to have certain sense because, you know, you want to be unique and you want to, at the end of the day, you're not a fish and you can't interview them. They won't talk to you. And so,
well, I talked to him.
yeah, but you don't talk back.
No.
But so you never truly know why that fish bit. Was it the scent? Was it the action? All that. So you'll never truly know.
Yeah, your worm looks unique.
Yes. So the worms
you got a pintail too. So I don't think I ever even knew that. I got your like little paddle tail thing that I'm showing right now, but
yeah, we call it the club. Well, originally it was called
club foot.
Club. We called it a club tail.
There you go.
We actually have 5 different tail types available, but we brought to market basically one, but we can alternate tail types easily. This is another case of being too different when people struggle with it. Our original bass worms were hollow.
Okay.
And they were hollow from for about maybe 60% of the length, from the head down about 60% of the body. Sometimes you can see a little hole in the side. You see a little lateral hole in there.
Right there.
So they were hollow down to that point. So the baits were designed for the hollow, allowed an incredible amount of customization and allowed you to exploit various, you know, concepts of fishing. So the hollows, you could, for example, you could inject scent in there. You could put nattles in there. You could put glow sticks. You could put Alka-Seltzer.
What was that light that you're talking about as well earlier? Look, that you can put in there. What's
like a little glow sticks?
No, that light that you didn't tell us about.
Oh no, well,
you wanted to.
It's not currently in this. Well, actually, it is in this one. The earthworm color.
Earthworm has it.
And coincidentally, that's our #1 selling color. What a surprise! So
there's some juice. Anybody in the comment section know what they're talking about? Help me out here. They're not giving it away. They're not giving it away. Creek Caller, I know you know. Just let me know. You can text me, Creek.
I'm not sure he does.
We're gonna find out.
So these baits were hollow, and the problem is when we talk about rigging, nobody knew how to rig them, and people would not buy them. Like, how do you rig it? Oh, let me back up. The other concept of a hollow is there's people who believe that fish through their lateral lines are able to detect a whole lot more than we think. And one of those things might be other fish have, you know, the air bladders, the hollows in their bodies. And so there was another concept of that having like a hollow in the worm is also kind of like an air bladder. And if the fish can detect that, that's just another level of attraction that would lead the fish to believe that it's a real living organism. It's really food and not some artificial plastic worm that's going to trick them. And the baits would, you know, with the hollows, you could fish them top water. You could put water. You could actually put water in the hollow to adjust your buoyancy. And I could make them dive and do all kinds of things. It was great. I loved the hollow worms, but we struggled with buying them. We kept asking people, and the end result was we decided to make them solid because people just struggled with the concept of a hollow worm. It became too difficult to educate and explain it to try something that different. And we just gave up and we went to the solid version and we sell more worms. And I still have the hollow versions, by the way, guys. So if you look on the website, you'll see it'll be listed as legacy bass worms.
Okay.
I have them in a June bug, a little bit in watermelon, and I have a green pumpkin pintail version.
Well, guys, I got good news for you. Scott, I'm going to drop it a little early, and we'll drop it again at the end.
Yeah.
Scott reached out to me earlier today, and he's like, hey, I want to run a little special tonight. So if you're just jacked up about some of this stuff, you're like, I want to try this, want to try that, head over to this link I'm throwing in here, nikko-fishing.myshopify.com if you're listening in on the podcast. And if you use the code WINDLE20, you're going to get 20% off. Yep. We even started to talk about Max 4 Fishing, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is also another 20% off if you use the code WINDLE20. However, it's only good through Sunday, 4/20. You got 5 days, folks, to make a decision. And if you're listening to this show after 4/20/2025, I apologize. You have to go listen to Nikko in another podcast. Maybe they'll do it again. So check that out. We're not done yet. All right, let's keep
we
on
got a long
rolling.
ways to go.
Yeah.
I can
Seth,
talk.
where were we at?
Just anything you talked about the hollow body. So now we're not hollow body.
Right.
So just the action of these baits and what makes them special.
So to compensate for the, with the hollow body, we used a little bit of a tougher material because we had less material there because it was hollow. So we went with a softer plastic. So I think you might have one there. But anyway, we went through a much softer plastic. So, it's really soft. It's stretchy. It's got incredible, collapsibility. We didn't lose anything on the durability. They're nice and scented. And, it's more familiar for people. And, for people who want to fish bass worms, it makes it an easier entry into the world of Nikko. So, and just you may notice the similarity with the bass worms and the Nikko Super Neds. The heads are very similar. Okay. And what was happening in the early days is people were buying our worms and chopping them in half and using those neds. And so we had so many people doing that I just went ahead and adapted the head, the top part of the bass worm, which is now called a shaky worm. And we just made super nets out of them. So here they are right there. And, these, it's the super nets are, they're a little bit different. Most neds are thinner, have a little thinner profile, and these are thicker. So we were really early on the game of the thick stuff, you see those like cover scats and thick stuff like that. It's the size of a 45 caliber bullet. It's a little bit thicker, and it's a Ned bait. It's simple. It has 3 different zones, and for people who fish Neds a lot, really like them. I think people who don't fish Neds a lot, who are less experienced, will probably do better with a thinner profile.
There you go. Creek says the Super Ned, aka the filet mignon of Neds. There you have it.
They are also the literal size of a 45 caliber bullet.
Yeah.
So they're beefy enough to attract the big girls out there and still nimble enough that even the small guys will hit it too.
And believe it or not, this may sound crazy. I'll even use them top water. And
you use all this stuff top water, it sounds like.
Yeah, it all floats. So I'm playing around with everything.
Yeah, right.
And I'll play around. When I fish for smallmouth, through the summer, the river's got a lot of grass that grows in it. I think it's actually wild celery, but it makes it difficult. So I end up reverting to top water for everything, and I play around with everything because I have to, every day I go out there, I want to learn. I want to push boundaries and experiment and everything. So I even use Ned's top water, and I do well with them. So that's just kind of, it's just fun, it's not something it's not going to be a sales point, I don't think, but it's, if you're out there playing around,
experiment. I love it.
It's an option.
Everyman Angling's like, thanks. After I ordered a few packs of the Okanagan minnows 5 minutes ago. Sorry, man. My bad. Should have let that drop a little bit earlier.
Everyman Angling, send me a note. I'll take care of you. Just
look at that.
If you don't send a note, I'm gonna forget. So
go
ahead and send me a note.
So BF Outdoors had a comment here. So about those crawls.
Ooh, yes.
Boom.
Wait, crawls are the newest big batch on the market right now.
Yeah, like the crawls are they're probably they're tracking the same way Helgamites used to track.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so the crawls just keep growing and growing, and we just keep getting more and more people. And the Helgamites were able to explode because there weren't very many good Helgamites, and there was only 3 or 4 companies. But with crawls, there's probably 200 or 300 different crawls out there. But our crawls keep growing, and it's a very unique bait. I'll kind of go over it. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah.
It's a 3.2 inch bait. I'm kind of dangling here, but the pinchers have a very wide stance, It's one of the widest stances on the market. And one of the reasons was that is at the time we wanted a defensive crawl. So everybody says their crawl is defensive, but the pinchers are straight and they're swimming. A real defensive crawl is out. And so we put ours out. So, to increase that vulnerable image. The other thing is the body arch. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah.
Okay.
it has an arch. So, and the tail's tucked. And the tail tucking is no big deal, but the whole crawl is really on the verge. It's that split second before taking off in fear and panic. It is the image. It is the quintessential image of a vulnerable crawl. It's a fearful. This is the most fearful pose a crawl has before it darts away. And so that's what we designed. And the bait has, and the other interesting thing is each cavity is unique. So even though the bait looks exactly the same, there's actually some slight differences with each cavity.
Okay.
What that does is that I'm a very firm believer that the fish know and understand, sense, and their environment to a much greater degree than us humans appreciate.
Okay.
And so we made the crawls different because if you lose a fish, you can go back with the same bait, but it's still not the same. I'm a believer that the fish are aware enough that they can detect whether something's exactly the same or not. And if you go back with something different, this gives you the option to go back with something different throughout the day. Now there's a lot of other little things to it. I mean, the antennas are long and at an angle, and a lot of these things are not done by other bait manufacturers because it increases the cost of the molds. And,
Okay. All the nuanced, detailed deals.
Yeah, and it even has a little special slit under the tail to help you center it when you're rigging it. And they're scented with crustaceans as well. I mentioned shrimp. A lot of the scents are kind of overlap, but if you got a crustacean, you might as well scent it with a crustacean. And so the crawls, we had them we had it at a tougher plastic and a higher price because of the packaging. And even at what's high for the market was, I think, $13.99 for a pack of 5. We kept growing and growing these crawls, and people would come back and buy more and more. Yeah. And we want more people to try the crawls. I mean, the crawls have very, very much proven themselves that it's a real legit bait. And so we've changed the packaging. We changed the formula. They're now a little bit softer. Okay. We brought in new colors, new packaging, new pricing. So it's a whole lot better. And so the crawls are now number 2 to their Hellgrammites. Nice. As far as sales goes.
The number 1 of the new colors happens to be Midwest Crawl. And then
Midwest Crawl is a green pumpkin. It's a clear green green pumpkin base with orange flake.
Okay. I like it. So we're going to switch gears a little bit real quick. If you're listening in, we've got a bunch listening in live. If you could hit the like button, if you're on the YouTube, help get some extra reach here. Don't need anything else from you. Just hit that like. Appreciate you. Seth, any question before we move over? I want to give Scott and I an opportunity to talk about Max 4 fishing. And then I want to give Jeff an opportunity to talk about as he works this kind of social angles. What just curious of the industry and all that stuff, that kind of what's hard in socials and how to break through and all that stuff. I'm curious. But first, let's talk Max 4. Let me present my screen.
Okay. So
what is it?
Well, it's a new brand. It's my own company. So I've been working with Nikko for a long time in the world of elastomers, and we are a small company and we can't do everything. And there are times where I need to fill gaps and shore up what we're doing, and that is kind of what Max is started as. And so the soft bait
gap.
Well, that was the original thing. It's a very difficult industry to survive. I've got 40 imitators of my Hellgrammites out there now.
Yeah.
And that what that means is people who use the Nikko Hellgrammite, we have a tremendous repeat order rate. But again, the baits last a long time. You can use a pack of Hellgrammites could last you 2 years.
Right.
So the cost of acquiring a new customer when there's 3 or 4 competitors is a lot lower. But when there's 40 different companies out there to acquire a customer, it's much more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so strategically, you need to fill some gaps in your portfolio in order to provide a sufficient base volume or an offering for your customers to keep them there.
Well,
so
real quick before we move on from that point, because I was going to ask you this question, you reminded me of it. I mean, your baits are so durable, they can last for years.
Yes.
And that's kind of like crap as a business. Right? Okay. Yeah. That's great. I'm glad we're making a sick product. However, if they catch 100 fish when the average soft plastic catch, like 5 or 6, man, that's a tough model.
It is. For me, honestly, I think one pack of Hellgrammites for me could probably go about 2,000 catches.
Jeez.
So that's about 500. You can probably go about, if you're careful and don't lose it, you could probably go about 500 on a Hellgrammite. It depends on. So
it's wild.
The bait, what you can get on a bait depends on the shape and the design and everything. Like you're not going to get 500 on a leech. It's a different design and you're using it differently. Who was it? One of the, I think it was East Tennessee show that we were a fishing show. A guy brought us a crawl that he had 300 fish on.
That was Columbus. That was a mud.
That's Columbus. Okay. Yeah. So he said, "Here it is. Here's your present. This has got 300 fish on it." 300
fish.
And but the point is, you need to make people happy. You need to bring value, and that's what we want to do, and we'll just keep trying to do it with, if you spend, we've actually done the math in the past, a long time ago. You will spend probably something like $30 to $50 on other baits for every dollar you spend on Nikko. And so even though our baits are higher priced, so long as you're not casting in the trees and breaking off all the time, but you will save a ton of money. And because the baits are completely environmentally friendly, there's nothing in there that causes harm. That's okay. Even if you do lose them, you're fine. But the other plastisol baits are extremely unhealthy and harmful, and and you lose them, and you just keep generating more and more toxic waste in the environment. And so we're okay with that. I mean, it's there's value, and there's the price and value, right? So you can buy a cheap bait, but ultimately you're gonna spend $50. And if you stick with Nikko and don't lose it, you'll spend $1.
Yeah.
So yeah. Wow. And so when I started Max, I also started elastomer bait. So I spent the last year and a half, 2 years looking around, talking to people, evaluating plastics, and I finally chose a company that I could work with. And so I have some soft baits, and
so these are elastomer. These are
elastomer, yes.
Okay.
So they're like Nikko. When I say they're like Nikko, to be honest, nobody in the world, can match Nikko. So I can't match Nikko, but I can get as close as I can, and these pass my tests. So I'm comfortable moving forward. So I just, these baits are kind of generic stuff. So Nikko's not very good at like super generic baits. So I can cover these here. So I have but they're still unique enough. Like not many people do curly tail grubs. You got that thick Ned right there, that little, called a creek slug.
I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool bait. In fact, I don't have many left. I mean, I didn't get as many as I expected, and my initial offering to people in the early days, it got picked up pretty quick. So that's a real nice bait. It's a unique profile. It's kind of cool.
2.7 in length. I mean, I'm looking at these. I'm looking at your prices. That's solid. because these are going to last a long time. You get
Yeah.
5 baits, $1 a bait. Come
Yeah.
on. Come on.
Well, I mean, nobody knows it. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even released them to the world yet. So, I mean, the site's up, but we haven't really announced much. So, you know, your viewers here today will get to
First dibs.
first dibs. So my stock is still a little bit limited, but I should be fine. So I choose some variety baits here. What's that?
We're going to wipe you out.
Yeah, I hope so.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So the other thing is, you know, bringing out a new brand that nobody knows about, I kind of have to have some an offering. So I spent some time working on with some tungsten guys, and so I have a line of tungsten, and you know, the weights and the jig heads. The jig heads are really nice. So yeah, so I've just got these are I like, obviously I don't make tungsten myself, and nobody in the US does.
Oh, really?
I
Single manufacturer of tungsten in the United States?
I don't think so. I heard there might be one company, but I'm not so sure.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so but I can tell you that the highest quality, most famous tungsten brands in the United States, this is the exact same spec.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Same.
I mean, it's a small world, and I can tell you that I got access to the right places.
I mean, I was told a lot of these things are just made in just a few places.
Yeah, well,
Overseas.
I mean, you still got to do your homework
Sure.
because there's various options, you know, through the process. But yeah, and then so right now all I have available would be the tungsten and the soft baits, and I'll have those some hard baits coming soon. So those are all going to be original as well, original colors. I'll have some other new baits coming next year. It's a process. See, when we talked about earlier about developing new baits, taking 1 to 2 years, you know, it does. And so those, yeah. So
you got new rods. You're in rod line.
Yeah, the rods are really exciting. I've got a couple of prototypes, and I sent them around to a bunch of people, and I'm really excited about those. That'll be a the specs are basically the $200 to $300 rod that you can buy for about $140. It's the blanks are 100% Toray carbon fiber, and then it's got the as far as the guides and everything would be Fuji. It'd be the second from the top. Of Fuji. It's got a very unique cork that looks nice, and it'll be. I'll have 2 spinning rods and a casting rod, but they're going to be the first series is going to have like the more of the micro guides, the smaller guides. So you can get, well, for me anyway, it's like it casts like a dream, and it's very easy to control. I think, and so that'll be new, and I'll have another series maybe next year. But these things take time, and you know, the more you branch out, the more you got to learn and make sure, you know, the more mistakes you make and the more you got to go back and fix and, you know, do that. I want to offer quality. Nikko has high quality. We're the most reliable, trustworthy company out there, I think. And that's what I intend to do with Max.
So question for you.
Yep.
A new company, even though you've been doing this for a long time. How do you plan on breaking the market with so many companies out there?
It's not easy.
No, I can only imagine. I mean,
it's very difficult. Like I said, you know, I worked
ads flying through my phone.
I worked in like Wall Street consulting firm, global consulting firms, working with other global firms and doing big important work and high stress and everything. And I can tell you this is far more difficult than anything I did in the corporate world. In most jobs, you have a value proposition that you can objectively evaluate. So if you go and you want to sell an engineered product to somebody, you can go through the numbers, you can see what it does, you can calculate efficiency, the value that it brings.
Yeah.
You can't do that with fish. with fishing. Ultimately, your end customer in the fishing industry is a fish, and so you can't talk. Well, you can talk to the fish, so they just won't talk back. So even though you imagine and you study and you research all these things about all of the decision criteria that goes into a fish biting your lure, ultimately you never know. All you can do is just keep through repetition and numbers. You can just keep testing various hypotheses, but truly you'll never know. And so now you got to take that back to the fishermen. How often do fishermen actually think about all those things at that level?
All day, every day.
Well, yeah, but a lot of them go by feeling, and then when you get into the fishing industry, what I was shocked by was that very few people would try new things, and because they would think a particular way, and so it's very difficult to break into something that's too innovative. I've got there's one particular design I have because I've been playing around with Nikko stuff. I would love to come out with this one particular design, but I know it's too different. It works really well, but it's just too different, and I'm afraid people won't buy it. So I'm just going to wait on it. I'll sit on it for a while and try to establish myself with something that's a little bit more in the comfort zone for the general customer base.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult. You got to come up with. For me, my value proposition is value. I'm going to bring value to people, and to be the other thing I mentioned. I didn't mention it, but I've told this story. When I first got in this industry, I probably met just about every bad person there was. I mean, I just got to.
You're like a magnet, Scott.
I was. I must have had like
the mob, organized crime.
Yeah, I've had just about every terrible thing happen in the early days. But in the early days, one of the things I realized was that there's a market for integrity in this industry. And the more you know about this industry, the more you know that that integrity in the industry is something that there's just not enough of it. And there's a bunch of good guys, but there's a bunch of bad guys. And I know that exists elsewhere in other industries, but from my corporate past, it just seems different. And that be one of the things I wanted to separate myself from the pack, is one of integrity. And that's what Nikko stood for. And that's what I've done the whole time. And that's the number one underlying core value that we have is integrity, because that's what I saw firsthand in the early days. And even though we're small, we're probably smaller than people realize. So a lot of people think we're bigger than we are, but and that's what I'm going to continue on with Max.
All right, I like it. One question, Jeff. I'll throw this question over to you. Are there any sleeper baits in your lineup that you don't feel like get the?
I know where this is going.
Is it that crab sitting over your shoulder, Scott, or is it something different?
Oh, those crabs are nice.
Yeah,
they're super
nice. Yeah,
they get on my Facebook and go. You're gonna scroll down the way, but you're gonna find a bunch of bass on those crabs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 90% of the time, if you see on the main pages a post that involves a smallmouth or largemouth with an octopus or crab, it's been him.
It's you, Scott.
99%.
You're the only one fishing octopus and crab for bass. That's why it's you.
Here's our new octopus coming soon. Actually, maybe this week.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see why bass would hit that.
Or call it black. Sleeper baits is just based on ones that I throw. One, by far my favorite bait. All the Nikko guys in here that know my favorite bait. That's the tadpole. I'm either rigging that on a Ned rig. I'm rigging it. My most favorite way would be Z-Man makes this. It's called a Z-Man Flashback Mini Chatterbait. It's old style bait, but it's available in a 15th ounce, and I'll use that as a trailer for those chatterbaits and buzzbaits. And just like Scott saying, they're durable. They stand up. 99% of the time, if I'm fishing, if I've got a bait tied on, it's usually the tadpole starting out. I usually have another, if I'm wading or actually on my kayak, I'll have the tadpole, I'll have the Helgramite or leech, and then I'll have a caddisfly.
Those tadpoles have brought in, probably from what I hear, anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 in tournament winnings that I know of.
Really?
Most of those would be on the Great Lakes, drop shotting on the Great Lakes. But
juicy drop shot.
Those of that's a sleeper bait. A lot of but it's one of those baits. People's first thing they say is, "How do you rig it?" And
You're giving me all kinds of video ideas. I'm just gonna make 20 videos. How to rig this, how to rig that, how to rig this.
It's a really nice bait. So right now we're down. We used to have like 8 or 9 colors. Right now we're down to 3, but we're going to transition. Probably, most likely next year, we're going to have a new version of the tadpoles coming out, different material, and it'll be very interesting and it'll make them even more effective for what they're designed to do. And so we're looking forward to that. But grab them now, and you'll enjoy them. If you're on the Nikko website, the black one, it's called Obsidian. Whatever's on the website's all there is. That's going to be gone. So, that's a favorite of Jeff. He loves that color. But
here's the mud bug. I got mud bug here.
Mud bug. That's one of my favorites. Is the mud bug.
Out of all the color, and pretty much any bait, I'm a big Obsidian fan. Favorite crawl when I'm throwing a crawl on the few times that I do use it. Now it's been the lightning bug, the black with chartreuse claws.
Okay.
The Scotch got right there. I've caught. People think that you need large baits to catch large fish, but unfortunately, that is my personal opinion. And I've talked to many other people. Is you don't. I've caught just as many largemouth and smallmouth, big fish on the leech, the tadpole, Helgramite, and even the caddisfly I've caught on anything else.
So the caddisfly is only 1.5 inches, but I've caught unusually a number of large fish on that bait.
Huh. And
it's as far as the tadpole goes, the tadpole is a bait that's just pretty fascinating. My very first cast ever, I put on a tadpole for the very first time. I cast it out and got a 4-pound bass. My very first cast ever with the brand new Helgramite, I got a 12-inch sunfish.
Oh gosh,
it was a hybrid. It was one of the hybrids, but yeah. But anyway, the tadpole has done really well. And my very first fishing show that I did, a guy demonstrated on the hog trough with a double drop shot, and he had another company's bait, brand new bait, and my tadpole, and all the fish jumped on the tadpole. And he said, "Well, that's not fair to the other guys, making the other guy's bait look bad." So he switched them out. So he switched them out, thinking, well, maybe the bass wanted to hit high or low, and all the bass jumped on my tadpole. And after that, Nikko was never allowed to be compared to other baits in the shows after that. And everybody lined up in the booth, and they were just pulling baits off, not even asking the price, just grabbing,
just pulling them off. Yeah,
it was so impressive. The tadpoles have always done really, really well in demonstrations. It's just that if you don't see it and you don't handle it, a lot of people are reluctant to buy it online because it's a very different bait.
Sure, 100%. So
that's
one of the last questions. Sleeper bait. There you go, folks. If you're hopping in and you didn't hear, 20% off. You go to max4fishing.com or Nikko and use Wendell20. Also, if you hadn't hit that like button, we got 52 live right now. Thank you guys for listening in. If you got any questions for Scott or Jeff or Seth or myself, go and throw those in the comment section as I ask them one of the last questions of the night. What is one weird or surprising story someone has told you about using your baits?
Weird or surprising? Well, most of them, I just keep thinking of the things I mentioned earlier on in the show about, the people who had addiction in their lives, or the cancer patients, or the wedding. I had I don't know. I mean, people. A lot of people would send us photographs of giant fish they caught, but they're usually not very good quality. It's tough to use them online.
Well, give us the top colors. What people your best sellers, top colors, hard to keep them in. I know you kind of mentioned it, but give us the rundown. Top 3.
No,
top 5.
Well, the color is the easy one. That's that Eclipse and Natural. That we call it Natural Hellgrammites, Eclipse, and the other baits.
My buddy put me on it. Put me on the right one then.
Earthworm. Well, in the shaky worm we call it earthworm. Yeah, that's by far the most effective color in the baits. What was the other thing you wanted to ask?
Run through the other colors.
The other colors would be probably the mud bugs, like the naturals, the blacks, browns, and greens. Green pumpkin. Those are. I mean, most of our baits are kind of natural creatures, and so the natural colors tend to be the best. I have a few of my own favorites. I really like. I have one unique color in the small Hellgrammite called a Dark Passion. It's a dark smoke with red and orange flake in it, and really is really done well. We have another bait called Pyrite, which is the same dark smoke with gold flake, and
there you go, Steph.
That bait
down there in Florida.
Well, I have one here. Even though it's really flashy, in perfectly clear water for smallmouth, where they have all the time to look at it and they have got great vision, and even you would think it's too flashy, but they still just jump all over that color. And I have another bait that's flashy that they don't go for, but they just go for that Pyrite, and that still puzzles me. I'm still trying to rationalize that.
BF Outdoor says, if enough people use Wendell's code, can we get Santa Scott to finally shave? I'm assuming you guys know each other. At least I hope so. It's gonna get real awkward real fast.
Yeah, well, this is kind of new, so yeah, most people probably haven't seen me with it.
Santa Scott, yeah, I like that. Oh my gosh. Here's a comment, and this we'll kind of land a plane on this. Every man angling says, I can't tell you how many times I've handed a kid a Hellgrammite on the bank and watched them catch their first bass after getting skunked.
Yep. Facts. They one of my things is if I'm out fishing, be it ponds, rivers, whatever, I generally will keep some on hand. And if I come across somebody that hadn't caught anything or anything like that, I won't purposely give them a brand new one. I will take off the one I've got tied on my rod and give that to them. And a lot of times with the same way I'm fishing it. And we've got so many repeat customers and people, good fans that way. Because if you're like me, it's about the memories. Whether you're out there making your own memories, you're out there being able to let somebody else make those new memories on their own. So, and that's one thing we can do, especially what Nikko has.
Yeah, the Hellgrammite really is, I think, and I've fished a lot of stuff, and I really think the Hellgrammite's a magical bait, and it really is at a different level. And so I think what every man angling is talking about, we hear that a lot, especially about the Hellgrammite.
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, Jeff, Scott, appreciate having you on our show. Hour and 40 minutes. Doesn't feel like it's gone that long, but man, I learned a lot about the company, learned about some baits and some colors and some research I have to do to find out the juice that you guys wouldn't share with me. So I'm excited about that, but appreciate you guys having the show. And just for all you guys listening, and just want to special thank you to Kayak Bass Fishing, the sponsor of the show, go-to source for all things kayak fishing tournaments. So don't miss out on those KBF monthly state challenges. Head over to kayakbassfishing.com. Sign up today. Fish against me. Take my money because I'm losing really bad this month. But next month, Seth, I will do that.
That's right.
Also, remember, head over to Nikko. Head over to Max 4 Fishing. You have until Sunday, 4/20/2025. Get 20% off using code Wendell20. Scott, Jeff, Seth, thank you guys. Everyone listening in.
Thank you, everybody.
And I just want to mention that if you have any questions, the contact section on the websites, those come to me. So if you do have some questions, you can still reach me through the website contact form.
Or message us on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Oh yeah, Facebook works too.
Look at that customer service, folks. I love that. So
real quick, Wade Life. The bright green with bluish tips, that either Aqua Moon or if you came to our actual show, any of those fishing shows, we like to do Easter eggs. And what that we do is when we're in the process of developing new colors, and we get all the samples in, if we're not able to obviously put it on sale, we'll put what we call Easter eggs out there at the shows, where it's this kind of special thank you for people that come out to see us at the show, that they can get a hold of some stuff that nobody else can.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, next week, I want to remind you, we're having the Jigs and Pigs podcast as our guest, but it's not going to be on Tuesday. It's going to be on Monday night to accommodate their schedule. So we'll see you next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. You all have a great week. See you later.
All right.